Hi. Let me just adjust this camera a little bit, just a center. Okay. Hi, everybody. I think we have a couple of people in the chat already. We have? Yeah. Okay. Welcome to the stream. We'll begin with the program shortly. We're just going to wait a few more minutes. My name is Hector, and I will be your host and moderator for today. So if there's anyone who is already in the chat, feel free to just pop a short message in the chat and say hi. We're really interested in finding out who our audience or where our audience is actually coming from. So if you do want to drop in a short message saying, what your background is, whether you're an artist, what field of study you're interested in, that will be really, really useful. And we can just get a conversation going before our program officially begins. Hi, is that Schizo? Hi, welcome to the stream. Yep, so we're just gonna wait a few more minutes before we begin. Hi, Mark. Hi, Mark. Welcome. From Schizo, say you're from London and you're playing the Kuching for 1 year, but you're a graphic designer. Wow, so that's really interesting. Someone who is blending the visual and sonic arts. So I'm sure that you might have some interesting kind of questions for Dr. Ho, or you'll probably find Dr. Ho's lecture interesting for tonight. Hi, Mark. Mark is a composer, writer, and painter. Hi, welcome, Mark. And I see you at, just a reminder, we are live on both Facebook and YouTube. So if you want to use Facebook or YouTube, you can actually watch them on both platforms. Hi, Pete Kellogg. Pete says that he creates electronic music and music software. Hi. Hi, Karen. Hi, Karen. Karen is from the 2020 PNP cohort. Hi, Junie Leong. Greetings from Toronto. Looking forward to hearing from you about Kuching pedagogy this morning. Waking up just for this. Wow. All right. So we're kind of like opposite ends of the globe. I'm pretty sure it's really early in the morning over there right now. Lawrence. Hi, Lawrence. Lawrence, a hobbyist in Sakuhachi and the Xiao. Hi, Jacqueline. Jacqueline is a theater practitioner who started playing Kuching 3 years ago and now doing your MA in Arts and Cultural Leadership with LaSalle. Hi. Wow, so we really have a really diverse audience tonight, and yeah, I'm seeing the view counters. No, our live viewership is really climbing, and that's a lot of eyeballs on all of us, right? I hope you have a really fun time this evening, a really fun, informative. Hi, Aliso. Hi, Samuel. Samuel is a local music educator teaching in the local school. Hi, Nadia. Wow, we have a lot of people tonight. All right. So we're going to begin the introduction of the program really shortly. We'll actually be going through a couple of introductions. So we're just going to wait for a few more people to pop on in. It's a work night. So we're just going to wait a few more minutes, let everyone kind of hop in onto the live stream before we kind of run through all the introductions so you don't miss the good stuff at the beginning. Hi, Isabel. Good evening. Great to have a chance to learn any Kuching in Singapore. Learned Kuching for 3 years in Hong Kong and in China. Hi, Lynn. Hi, Shane, Ryan. I'm going to be pretty bad with names. So I'm not going to try to pronounce that last name. So please pardon me if I get the last, your names wrong. So greeting, hi, welcome. We have people from Indonesia, Toronto, Canada. We have Singapore. Hi, Joycelyn from Korea. Hi, Christopher. Hi. So I think we're just gonna check whether we are gonna begin soon. They just make sure that everyone is ready. Okay. So I got the go ahead to begin with the introductions. So without a further once again, welcome to Pedagogies Beyond. Right. So this is a public engagement series from the Masters or MA's Art Pedagogy and Practice program at LaSalle College of the Arts, which is in Singapore, which I will be graduating from very thankfully. My name is Hector Lee, and I will be your host and your moderator today. I'm an educator, I'm a sound artist and computer musician, and I'm a recent graduate or graduating from the Masters in Arts Pedagogy and Practice program at LaSalle College of the Arts in Singapore. As part of my master's thesis, I've been working on research into exploring new ways to teaching music technology and critical listening skills. So, just to compartmentalize a little bit about who I am, since you've all done some introductions, it should be fair for me to just mention a bit about myself. So, once again, we are live on Facebook as well as on YouTube. Our Facebook page is at facebook.com/arts pedagogy and practice. All right. And I'm pretty sure that if you have stumbled your way onto this live stream, either on Facebook or YouTube, you've kind of found us already. If you're on YouTube, do hop over to our Facebook page and join on the Facebook page so they can stay updated with our upcoming and future events. Now, at this point, I would like to invite our program leader, Dr. Edmund Chow, to perhaps share a few words about Pedagogies Beyond.
Thank you very much, Hector. I'm really excited to do our second live streaming event today. And please allow me to introduce myself. I'm the program leader. I'm Edmund Chow at the LaSalle College of the Arts. I'm in charge of the MA degree in Arts Pedagogy and Practice. Now, this MA program uniquely brings arts educators together from different disciplines, from performing arts to fine arts, film and design, as well as from literary arts to curatorial practice. So, but with a specific focus on the philosophies and methodologies related to teaching and learning. So we started Pedagogies Beyond as a public engagement series because, number one, we realized we wanted to bring everyone together to have that conversation, to network with each other and to find potential collaborators across different disciplines. But number two is really to bring all the artists, overseas and local professors, scholars and artists together to share about their best practices, to perhaps offer provocations for us to consider how we can teach and be more experimental in the way we teach our arts practice. So I'm very happy that we're going to have Dr. Ho Chung-Shih with us today because I believe his approach to music composition is or has strong implications in the way we teach improvisations. And I think it's not just within the music field, but it can also translate to a lot of other arts disciplines. All right, thank you. So thanks for being here, everyone. And Hector, over to you now.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Edmund Chow. So before we hand over tonight's exciting event to Dr. Ho, we do have some housekeeping matters. Don't worry, I'll keep it short. Just to kind of give you an idea about the structure for this evening's session. So we'll actually be having two question and answer segments. Dr. Ho will first give a short lecture for the first 20 minutes or so, and then we'll invite some question and comments from the viewers. So just a reminder, you can just type it into the chat, whether you are on YouTube or on Facebook. We will see, or should hopefully see, barring any technological kind of challenges, we will actually see, and we will actually take note of the questions for the question and answer sessions. So that will be the first section. After that brief question and comments section, Dr. Ho will actually continue with his lecture, where this section will actually invite more question and answers in a more spontaneous fashion. Now, most of our online events are expected to finish in 1 hour, but I do suspect that this evening we might just run past 9 p.m. tonight. So if you do have to leave, unfortunately, you can always come back to this page. This stream will actually be recorded, and you can watch the replay of tonight's broadcast anytime that you wish to. But do make sure that if you do have to leave, you can always leave a question for Dr. Ho in the chat, so we can actually, catch up on the question during the question and answer session. All right, so that's the housekeeping matters. So tonight's topic, where we come to the exciting portion, is titled Touching Sounds, Instrument as Music by Dr. Ho Chung Shih. Now, Dr. Ho Chung Shih studied at King's College London and completed a PhD in composition at the University of Buffalo, where he also studied computer music at the Lajaran Hiller Computer Music Studios. Since 1996, he studied the guqin with Master Ji Ziqun. His international presence as composer through works by commissions and requests from Asia, Europe, and America have led him to collaborate with some of the world's premier musicians. Dr. Ho is also a sound artist who works in interdisciplinary collaborations with MLUM, an international artists collective. His interests can be described as an exploration of a double intersection, one between the avant-garde and the experimental, and the other between the international, contemporary, and traditional Chinese literati cultures. Sorry. A little bit of a tongue twister there. Now, in tonight's sharing, Dr. Ho will highlight the resonances between his musical expressions and in these two worlds, specifically focusing on the guqin, the Chinese seven-string zither. Dr. Ho puts forward the argument that the physicality of playing the instrument is the very music itself, as I experienced and understood. All right, let's now welcome Dr. Ho. Hello, Dr. Ho.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Hector.
Hi.
Thanks for the introduction.
No problem. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
All right. So, is the screen shared? It is, yeah. Okay, good. All right. Hello, everybody. So let me get started with this presentation since it's almost 8:15. There's quite a lot to cover in a short time. Okay, so all right. So this talk will really be about looking backward and looking forward. Looking backward in time to a very ancient practice. I mean, the guqin music has kind of a 3,000-year history, and what is unique about it is that it's kind of an unbroken history as well, unbroken lineage, with very good documentation of scores, notation, and then teacher-student transmission as well. So at the same time, I'm also looking forward towards like what can we do with this heritage now. So this the following here, they are the so-called disclaimer. Yeah. Okay. So the first point, I think that what I can talk about is really a very contemporary view of essentially a very old music. So I cannot pretend to know that what my insights are really the authentic interpretation of these very ancient music. So what I would like to suggest is, in fact, a very creative take on something that we can still have access to, such as how it feels playing the instrument, how it sounds playing the instrument. All right. Then the second disclaimer is, I find that it's always hard to talk about music without showing a work in full. And to show music within a very limited time is always very hard, because a piece of music can be 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and it takes time to unfold. And then following that, if you to say something more about it, it's going to take up a lot more time. So So today I would just talk instead on very broad basic ideas, not get too much into technical details. I'm also trying to keep it general and conceptual so that I think that it is inspiring in more than one ways to tonight. Like I see a very broad range of audience here. So some I hear are interested to learn about Guqin, or I've been learning the Guqin. Some of you are contemporary music practitioners. So in a way, I'm trying to marry both worlds, and I feel that I feel that the way to communicate across centuries is on the conceptual plane. So that's why I want to keep myself to tonight. Okay, let's start with listening. So this is a very typical Guqin music. This piece is called Yu Ge, is played by a very famous Guqin master of the last century, Zhao Fuxi, and in a way I would say that this recording is very, very typically how a Guqin would sound like. And that is what, in the first place, got me really, really hooked on this very ancient instrument. And I will share with you why. Okay, so let's have a listen first. Okay, I shall pause this at this point here. We shall come back to visit this piece after the first half of the lecture. So you realize that I do not know. I mean, I guess you can write your comments on the chat box there. I find that this music is at the same time intriguing as well as frustrating, simply because of these various questions I have. So what is it that we are hearing? Where is the music? These are some of the questions that I ask myself. Is there a melody? And if there is, why is it so fragmented? Then why are there all these noises and silences? Are they part of the music? Are they intentional? And if so, what is the kind of musicality behind these seemingly fragmentary sonic expressions? So these are the kind of questions that I have when I first encountered Guqin music. So and I guess I wanted to learn more. I wanted to know what is it that that to me it is not fully sonically engaging, has such a lure, has such an attraction or staying power in Chinese culture for all these centuries. So let's look at how the instrument looked like and how it is being played. So this is a rather long body of instrument. It's actually in a way, because I guess because of its very ancient history, yes, not quite actually developed over the centuries, and it's essentially just a resonating box. Like this is a resonating box, or here, resonating box with 7 strings strung across it, just like that. Yeah. So it is actually a very, very simple instrument. If you strung rubber band over a box and you plug over it, the box actually helps to amplify the vibration of the rubber band, right? So this is essentially how it works, right? And what is also very interesting is that you notice that the player actually place their hand on the string and they press it down onto the body of the resonating instrument. That to me is always kind of interesting, simply because a lot of instruments, they would have put a fingerboard suspended over the instrument, so that you don't actually touch the resonating body. The reason being that once you touch the resonating body, you are essentially dampening the instrument. So that acoustically is not considered ideal if you want an instrument to speak. So why is this instrument constructed in such a way that requires you to touch the instrument? So that's another very intriguing question for me. So let us look at next the notation. So I'm kind of approaching it like any musician would, right? First, you look at the instrument, you wonder about the instrument, you play around the instrument, then you look at, okay, what is the notation like? What is the score like? So on the bottom right-hand corner here, you see a fragment of what the score looked like. It is the notation itself is also very unique among Chinese instruments, and also among, I would say, instruments of the world. Yes, it is what one would call action notation, which means that it actually tells you the kind of fingerings to use, the finger positions, the hand movement. So some people say that, yes, of course, the European lute tablature is somewhat like that as well. But I would say that this notation goes further than just indicating finger position on the instrument itself. Okay, let me continue. Later, I'll show you the details. Okay, the next slide. So next thing, which is very interesting, is that for those of you who knows Chinese, this score looks like a Chinese text. So yes, of course, this is the music of the literati. I mean, one could say that in feudal China, there are different categories of music, or functions of music. So there is the court music, for example. There is the religious ritual music, for example. There is also the folk music, for example. But this music of the Guqin belongs to a very special category called the literati music, or the music of the literate class, or the who are really the scholar class in the feudal China kind of social hierarchy. And being literate, you can imagine that they actually invent scores that actually look like text on a page. But of course, if you were to those who read Chinese, you were to read look at any of these characters, you'll find that it does not look like any characters that we know. This is actually a shorthand composite of various parts of known Chinese characters. And later in the next slide, I shall explain how this is deciphered. But even deciphering this notation itself is, I feel, a game in itself. Okay, so because of how the notation is laid out, it is one character like that indicate one sound that is produced. So here in this first line here, you would have 4 different sounds. So the next question that comes from musician is that, how long do I play each sound for? So what is the kind of rhythm? So later on, as I explain to you how you decipher the notation, you realize that the duration is actually very much linked to the whole physicality of playing the instrument. Yeah. So therefore, in a way, I would say at this point, that sounds is actually a result of the action. I think that's just keep that idea in mind for the moment, because it might sound like it's very obvious, isn't it? You make some action on the instrument and some sound came about. But I think that because of the way the music is notated and the way that the importance is put upon playing precisely as notated, I would say that the action actually take precedence over sound in some ways in playing this music. So if you were to think like that, then you will come up with this question whether this is still a musical instrument or not. Okay, so now let us look at what the sound created is like. Let's zoom in on the notation. So this is like one composite character, and if you to break it apart, there is a certain way of reading it. So the top half refers to the left hand plucking instruction. The lower half refers to the right hand. So let me explain one by one. So this Chung refers to the middle finger. So left hand middle finger, what it says is left hand middle finger, you are supposed to put it at the position of 10, 8. 10, 8 is actually interestingly 10.8. Yeah. So just now in the previous slide, when you look at the instrument, you will find that there are all these harmonic notes on the instruments laid out like that, somewhat similar to like a bass guitar. So 10.8 means that the 10.8 note, so approaching 11th note. So that's the position, precise position you're supposed to place your middle finger down that way under the body of under the string, pressing down to the body of the instrument. Then this lower half here, this part of a character of 勾字 refers to middle finger plucking inwards. So for every finger plucking inwards and outwards, there's actually specific name. So middle finger plucking inwards is 勾, middle finger plucking outwards is 提, for example. So in this case, it's 勾. So 勾 what? Or pluck what? Pluck the first string. So therefore, there's this number 1 written here. So pluck the first string. Then what is this sign here? This those read Chinese, this is called 三点水, and it's actually part of a character called 注, which means that you're supposed to do a descending slide towards this position with your left hand. Therefore, you realize that the way they describe the sound is actually a composite. It's not just a pitch. I guess this top part here will give you a very precise pitch. On the first string, 10.8 position, note position. Yeah, that would be a very precise pitch. But then you're supposed to approach it with a downward slide. And I guess with the middle finger plucking. Later also, I also show you the right hand technique. There are all these theories about different, the reason why they got different names from different finger use is because that they have all sorts of different associations, yeah, suggestions, the physicality, suggestion of the physicality. So therefore, there is also this whole idea of articulations and tone color invoked or suggested to produce this one sound. Yeah, so therefore it's conditioned by the physical movement. And then the rhythm is suggested basically when you have different characters, one after another, and you are telling you what to do from this position to the next position to the next position, all across the whole length of the resonating body of the instrument. So you can actually see it as like a choreography of for fingers on top of the instrument, moving across the instrument, both left hand like that, sideways across the instrument, and right hand inwards and outwards motion. So both coordinated in this way. So it's actually like a choreography, so notation of choreography of both hands in that sense. So therefore, the relative length of each sound is very much conditioned by that as well. It's almost like for those of you who are in dance, you know, like if you want to make a certain move to another position, or those of you who've done yoga, right? I mean, if you do a whole series of poses and you go from one pose to another pose, there'll be a certain kind of flow and ebb, fast and slow momentum build up, as you move from one to another, and it will suggest a certain kind of motion or certain kind of flow or certain kind of rhythm in that sense. Yeah. So therefore, there's a very particular activity in Kuqing music called dapu, which is making music out of a series of action, turning this discrete sound into music through time and motion. Okay, so therefore, for Kuqing music, sound is a complex. Yeah, it's really like complex. It's gestural, it's precise fingering instructions. Pitch slides in this case is not an ornament. It's part of the sound itself. And then time is also relative to the physicality of movement, rather than time as something independent and absolute, where you then impose upon these sounds. No, I think the sound and time are born all at the same time through movement. I think that is a very, very fundamental or very crucial difference, I feel, that is very unique to this instrument. So the idea of touch next. Yeah, back to the left hand. So there are also different positions, different points of the finger, of each of the fingers that you use to touch the string, and they got different ways of notating where you use your finger to touch the string. And I feel like, just now remember I said that it's a very interesting concept of an instrument that allow you to touch the resonating body. So it is my idea after playing all these years, it's also my insight that actually this is an instrument that require you to feel the sound. Hence my talk is called Touching Sounds, yeah? Because I really feel that this instrument is as much an auditory kind of enjoyment of for an auditory enjoyment. It is also a tactile, a very sensual, tactile kind of enjoyment when you play this instrument. Okay, now for the right hand, yeah. These are some of the more classical texts explaining all the various right hand techniques. Like for example, in this case, this particular technique, 拔刺, right, is the way to give you a clearer idea how you should actually do this motion of 拔刺. They have this imagery of a fish flapping its tail as it swims or as it changes direction. So in a way, it is very, very vivid and very physical as well. This next one is called P and tour. Is basically the thumb motion plucking inwards and outwards. And this it compares to compared to you look at this, there's even an emotional aspect to it, right? This in the manner of a crane dancing as a result of being started by a breeze. Yeah, so all these kind of poetic imageries that's imbued into the whole physicality of playing the instrument, I feel they are like infinitely fascinating. Then next, this other technique called fu or gun fu, right? Fu is part of this strumming across a string. So it's a very light kind of movement. And here it says, in the manner of a wind sending off light clouds. Yeah. So like for example, the poem says, they rise out in abundance. Their manner is that they will follow the slightest breeze. So I think it's kind of trying to suggest to you that you must brush your fingers across the string, like clouds being blown off by gust of wind or something like that. Okay, so having had a brief introduction on this, let us go back to listen to this piece again. I would suggest that you now pay attention and try to imagine how they move, because a lot of the noise actually comes from the movement of the hands on the strings, and how that actually imbue with it this whole sense of physicality, and also at the same time, when it is silence, when the sounds are totally faded off. Remember I said that for the player, they can still feel the vibration of the instrument and of the string on your fingertip. And so if you think maybe acupuncture is kind of like acupuncture of sound, you kind of really feel the sound going fading away in an auditory way, and then coming up, or rather transferring onto a tactile sense of that sound. So the continuum of the sensation is from auditory to tactile. And how magical is that? Okay, let's stop there. All right. I think at this oh wait, let me get you to the next slide first. So the conclusion of this part about the Guqin, I would make this few points of summary, right? So this whole idea of music is really embodied, and is at the same time auditory as well as tactile, yeah. And this idea of this feeling of vibrations on the fingertip as part of the musical experience, the poetic meaning and also the physicality suggested with the hand and finger movement as also part of the musical expression. Therefore, not all it is a very psychosomatic kind of experience. All right. Okay, so I guess we can take some question for now, because I understand that this talk can be quite dense in a short time.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Ho, so far for that amazing first section. There's the chat. We'll open up the chat for anybody who wants to drop in a question or two. But just to keep it short for this point, because portion, because we still have a more extended Q&A session later on. So if you do have any questions for Dr. Ho, you do have any comments that we'd like to drop in, please do drop into the chat. Once again, you can either use the Facebook or the YouTube chat box for us. So I know there's a little bit of a delay on the stream itself, so we're just gonna give a couple of seconds just for the stream to catch up, like for the time to catch up first. So we do have a question for Dr. Ho from, I mean, there's Giza. Could you say can you say a little bit about the recording, Dr. Ho?
Oh, all right. This recording is the sets of recordings, I believe, that was done in the 50s after the formation of China, after the nationalist government, after the Civil War, really. Then I think in the 50s, they actually gathered together all the masters of the last centuries, and they did this whole set of recordings. And I'll note that the recording, I believe, is done on silk strings. Nowadays, when people play the Guqin, it's very much steel strings, steel wrapped with nylon. But then, in the traditional way, it's actually silk string. The use of silk string as a practice is coming back now very strongly as well. And I guess that's why you can hear very distinctive glitches, right? Kind of like a bit like guitar glitches. Distinctive glitches. And the silk string, when you rub against it sideways, you actually also help to reactivate the string in terms of its sound, its pitch. So in a way, again, these are all very subtle kind of qualities. They are not, in any case, very loud. So I would also say that this instrument is basically an instrument for one person to enjoy as he plays. And occasionally, only very occasionally, you play for friends who know the music. Oh, is it a studio recording or live
Yeah,
recording?
so we'll follow up the question as well.
Yeah, I have no idea. Nobody has spoken about that. I would imagine it would be a studio recording of some kind. Yeah, because it is pretty close mic, I would say, closely mic. But understand that this is 50s technology as well. Yeah, 50s recording technology. So.
All right, so we're going to take another question by Lawrence Go, who says, who's asking, would that mean that the Guqing is better appreciated by watching in addition to listening?
Yeah, I would say that in the way a Guqing, just like I said, that it's really a music for one. Yeah. I think recently, ethnomusicology, American ethnomusicology, who is also a Guqing player, Bell Yung, wrote an article called "Music for One," exactly about the Guqing, and indeed it is something to be. I would even go as far to say that it's just like a spectator sport for the rest of us. Yeah, if you watch a tennis match, right, the two person playing are the ones really having the fun, right, because they are really hitting and serving and returning the serve, and they are the one having the fun. We are just watching on the side. Yeah, so I think Guqing music is very much like that as well. Yes, the visual element is very important. I would also go as far to say that the experience of listening to the qin is such that one really has to know the qin to listen to the qin, simply because as just I was listening the second time, I don't know whether you can hear me. I was kind of humming to myself the whole melody through especially when it goes into silence. And then when the next time when he plucked again and it coincide with my breathing and my singing, internal singing, it gives you a sense of this whole 知音, this whole rapport with one another. As one listening, as one listen to it, so that is in a way to the kind of very particular kind of enjoyment of Guqing music, and in a way it is also very similar to other art forms practiced by the literati class, such as calligraphy. Very often, if you look at calligraphy, right, it's not really about the words themselves, but really about how the words are written. Very often you see, especially you look at 行书 or 草书, right, the more cursive kind of script, it's very hard to decipher what word that might be. But as those of you who know Chinese writing, you know that Chinese writing is kind of pictorial and graphic, but it also has this element of forming that shape in a very particular stroke sequence. So there's a 笔画. That means there's a stroke sequence as to which stroke you should write first before the next to form that character. So unlike Western kind of writing, like if you think about letter A, like a small lowercase a, you can draw the circle first and then draw the line on the side next. Or you can draw the line on the side next, or then followed by the circle. That's all possible. For the Chinese character, there's only one way round to write a particular character. And so I think that a lot of time when people look at or enjoy a calligraphy, they're actually following through what is left as traces or marks left behind by the calligrapher as he moves his brush against the paper through this sequence of strokes. And you enjoy that whole sense of movement as being captured on the paper. And that is the enjoyment of calligraphy. And I feel in the same way, one enjoys Guqing music by internalizing the tune and the movement. So when one listens to someone play the tune back to oneself, it is kind of finding that resonance between the two person in that sense. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Ho. So I think we have time just to wrap up on one more question, or rather combination of questions before we move on to the second part. Do not worry, we'll catch up on the questions that have not been answered in the next section as well. So this one is a combination of a couple of comments. So firstly by Isabel Wu, who says that I'll ask, would you say that it's instrument to be felt, I guess. And then Ali so also mentioned, so it's becoming a unit with an organic sounding instrument while dancing poetically with your fingers to emote. And there is one more. We're saying that Karen mentions, Karen Denise De Silva mentions, I like how the importance of music and movement is unified in the Guting. Would you say that feeling the sound is key to being able to perform or experience this form of music? So there's a couple of comments, and I think it's reversing the role now. So earlier on, you're mentioning from the audience, the listener perspective, and then now it's from the performer perspective. Would you like to comment a little bit on that?
Yeah, I think all that have been said is all true. In fact, if you start playing the instrument, I always tell my student, you are kind of like feeling the sound and you're massaging the sound as you do the various kind of vibrato on it. You're literally feeling the vibration on your fingertip. Over time, you kind of develop a certain sensitivity on your fingertip, and you are playing, really molding the sound in a very, very physical way. And I feel like that is really, really precious. In a way, I'm not sure. I mean, in a way, I feel that it is like you know how like a blind people sometimes will put their hands on your mouth as you speak, as they feel your words. Yeah, they can as if hear through their fingers. So it's almost similar to that. You literally could hear through your fingers. Yeah.
Can I interject, Dr. Ho? Yun Wong's asked this very good question, which is also on the same point. He says about your point of finger choreography, some cultures treat the instrument as an extension of the body. Would you say that the kuching might then be an extension of thought as well as body, especially since the fingering and playing seems rather independent of sound?
Yeah, actually, I wouldn't say that they are independent. In fact, it's a very interrelated kind of thing. So they don't see literally sound as, you can't separate sound out from movement or visual or tactile experiences. So there's a holistic experience, and the reason being that is like, I mean, I can go into Gutian a lot. I mean there's so much to say. I mean this very short introduction really does not do much justice, but it actually, I'm just trying to set out a context to talk about my music mix. So if you talk about the instrument, right, the top part of the instrument is made curved, and the bottom part is made flat, and that actually relates to Chinese cosmology, 天圆地方. So the idea is that the sky is curved. I guess it's very like European medieval idea, right? The sky is curved and the earth is flat. So can you imagine if you make an instrument modeled on the universe in that sense, yeah, with the sky, with the heavens and the earth like that, and you as a person playing the instrument, it actually completes this whole Taoist Confucian idea of 天地人. Yeah, the man between the heaven and the earth. Yeah, I mean, those who know Chinese thinking, that is a huge concept. And therefore, what does one do? What does human do between heaven and earth? Then you got to go into the idea of Li and Yue, ritual and music, which are, Chinese philosophers talk about a lot in the past. Basically, the role of music is to harmonize. Harmonizing what? Harmonizing the elements of the universe. So therefore, playing the music is a process of harmonizing the elements. So therefore, music is not just purely sound or purely music as we kind of understand in the modern sense. It is really, really very deeply, I really hate to use the word spiritual, because again, that is a very problematic word, I feel. I mean, it is very deeply part of what a human is, to play this role between heaven and earth. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Thank you, Dr. Ho. Yeah, just to add on, I think Joycelyn Clark has a comment who just said that, yes, she agreed that we feel through the vibrations in our fingers as well. So with that, we're going to move on into the second portion of Dr. Ho's presentation.
Yep. I realized that we have 10 minutes to 9 o'clock.
So yeah, okay, we may have.
I will zoom through this very quickly. All right, so this idea of thinking about instrument first, then music, And thinking, remember just now one of the first questions I asked is that, what is the musicality that informs this music? Or rather, as a composer, now I put on my composer hat, yeah, I think, like, what gives rise to this music? The instrument gives rise to this music, right? The instrument is an interface, right? That you as a body interface with. And in the interaction between the player and the instrument, the music comes out as a result, right? So can I, as a composer, think of making music in that way rather than thinking from the sound in? Can I think from the instrument out towards the sound? Yeah. So now about sounds. So I go back to a very old piece of mine, 2005, when I was still very much a Western trained composer, thinking of really like sounds. So when I showed this piece to a friend, they say, "Where do you get this whole series of pictures from?" Yeah, I said that, oh, I have certain pitch structure in my mind and things like that. So that's how a Western composer would think. I mean, that's how we think about music, right? When we listen to a piece of music, we think that, oh, there's a melody. So there's a sequence of pitches, right? That we recognize that as, oh, this is this song because the pitches goes like this, right? Or with this rhythm, right? So we recognize music from the sound in rather than from the action out towards the sound. Right? If the source of the sound is the action, why don't we recognize the music through the action? Why do we recognize the music through the sound? Yeah. So anyway, this is a kind of transition piece where I was still thinking, I was still having this whole, I said, I still had this baggage, I guess, to think that no, music is about organizing sounds. So I must have a set of sounds that I can be sure that they make sense. Then I try to, then how do I incorporate this idea of using the instrument? So then I distributed these sets of sounds across the whole length of the fingerboard of the cello. So this is for actually in the fun way for two singing cellists. So these cellists have to vocalize as they play as well. Again, there's a lot of details I cannot go into, but just to briefly give you an idea, I chose the cello also because cello has a long fingerboard. So the length is almost like the guzheng. Actually, the lower string of the cello is the same as the guzheng. So that's also another reason why this piece was written in such a way. It's kind of like hidden homage to guzheng. Yeah. So then I distributed the pitches all across. Those who know string instrument, you know that what I say that you got to do to play these across these pitches, right? It's really crazy jumping up and down the whole length of the cello. So then yet, I kind of wrote them as equal notes, but actually that's to be played as fast as possible. But of course, you cannot play them evenly. So again, I'm already trying to break down the idea of rhythm or note duration. Yeah, it looks like they're all of equal duration, but of course you cannot execute them ever evenly unless you play them evenly slow, which is not the whole idea at all. So in a way, I'm trying to emulate the whole idea of the guzheng score, how it looks with very neat rows of equally spaced characters, but actually in sound, they kind of like ebb and flow in that way. So very quickly, I let you hear the chaotic screaming of these two instruments. So if those of you who are new to contemporary music, this may come as a shock. But you can also see why on hindsight now, I am intrigued by the guzheng, especially with all the noises, right? Yeah, I think contemporary musicians love noise. Okay, next. 2 years later, I wrote this piece for solo violin. And now I more seriously want to get a piece out of the sound production itself. So those who know the violin knows that these two notes are the first and second string, the upper two strings of the fourth string in the violin. And I have it starting like this whole line is very, very quiet, extremely quiet and extremely slow bow. So I was trying to really, really write a piece exploring the sound production of the violin, basically. And also at the same time, I learned that bowing instrument, they have the bow hair, right? When the bow hair is looked at under the microscope, they actually look like little hooks. So it's actually a series of hooks, kind of like scratching the string. So that's why I give it this name called friction, basically. So you must move the bow at a certain speed for it to sound like now. So as you play fast enough, the sound will start to appear. So because of its uneven or difficulty in controlling a very slow bow and to have a constant sound production, you get this very patchy. You get this very patchy. Sorry for it just gets very loud. You get this very patchy kind of sound quality, yeah. And that's in a way I also was thinking of, in a way, isn't it like the guqin kind of thing? Like how there's this unevenness because of how the sound fades, and also because the finger has to move and it creates long and short durations of notes in that sense. Then so of course this is a piece. The whole piece explore the basic fundamentals of sound production of guqin. Then later on in the piece, at this point here, those who read the score, again I'm playing this time with a different way of playing with this note, with the sound production. It's actually very high harmonics. Oops, sorry. Very high harmonics in a very high position. And those of you who know the terrain of the string instrument, you know that the string is suspended over the fingerboard, and so at very high position, you press down, there is a certain gap. So as you press, you actually microtonally shift the pitch as well. So that's why there's all these subtle left-hand motion like that create all these fluttering effects here as well. Okay, I should run through. All right, so in a nutshell, these two pieces really explore the physical terrain of the instrument and how I'm trying to explore how the sounds speak in different performance conditions, such as having to do this kind of leaps, right hand, left hand coordination, like very slow bowing, what happened when your bowing goes so slow, or increasing pressure, what happened. Then also exploiting the whole terrain of the instrument, like the string height of the fingerboard, and how that create different kinds of sounds as a result. And so starting from the point of sound production, how do you then organize a performance which you can call a piece of music from it? Okay, next, this idea of space. I mean, once you talk about something that to do with the body, interaction of the bodies, the performance body and the instrument, you inevitably have to talk about space. And space, then later on, I wrote a piece with two instruments. So I kind of moving away from just a solo instrument kind of setting. So in a way, on a conceptual level, what I took from the guqin, I try to see how I can then explode it out into various kind of different instruments, ensembles as well. Later on, you shall see that I even orchestral works that came out of this idea of using touch, space, terrain, and all that in an orchestra. Okay, so for trombone and piano, this piece is called parts because the trombone part is separate, written independently of the piano part. So both musicians actually get something that is not coordinated, but they have to coordinate in performance. So in a way, that to me is a bit like the idea of, remember I mentioned the word tapu earlier, where how you make those discrete sounds and string them up to make into a musical piece. So I wanted them, I also like the idea of how music cannot be preconceived. I mean, there cannot be a preconceived idea how a music can sound, but it can only be created in time through the interaction of performance in a performance. So that's why I came out with this idea of writing things in separate parts, and then they are supposed to put it together in performance in response to what each other play. Then of course there are various kinds of things. In interest of time, I see it's already 9 o'clock. I should just skip through this. I think that those who are interested to learn more about each of these, I can talk about that later. So again, you can see that I don't write in terms of pitch anymore. I write in terms of the mechanism of playing. Like this is really a slight position. One is supposed to do lip glissando, harmonic glissando through all the whole harmonic spectrum of this slight position one of a trombone. Then for the piano, I have totally redesigned how one plays a piano. Instead of playing with the fingers, you play with the wrist on the white key and the fingers on the black key, simply because I'm trying to think how an alien would understand a piano to be played if they discover that millions of years later when they discover Earth. Because why are the black keys above the white keys, for example? Right? I mean, why? Yeah. So could one of the way be playing like this way? If they understand human anatomy, they will think that, oh yeah, you can tap the black keys on top and then hit the white keys below like this. So then I come up with a set of score for the piano playing in this way. All right. So just a tiny snippets of what. Okay, so if I were to just drop the needle, you can see that they each have their own kind of rhythmic material, and then they really have to kind of use the material and dance with each other in that sense. Okay, so this in a nutshell is that. Then also there are pieces this is for a voice. So I'm trying to use the vowel of a Buddhist mantra and using the idea of circumambulation. You know, it's a Buddhist kind of practice to circumambulate holy objects like that, right? So and those of you who know IPA, you know that how the vowel is formed, like in the front of the mouth, the back, and E or or like that, right? You kind of place the vowel at different parts of this vocal cavity in that sense, right? So by singing through these various vowels, it kind of like is a vocal oral cavity circumambulation using the vowels of the mantra. So again, I designed a piece based on this movement like that, within the oral cavity. Then, of course, for the orchestra, I kind of split the orchestra into various ensemble, or larger ensemble into various groupings, and then each grouping will have its, because of its combination of instruments. Like you see, this ensemble A has all this wind instrument, this is all the string instrument, ensemble C is all the percussion. So they all have certain kind of texture, and then and so that will constitute the kind of terrain that, or in terms of the kind of things that they can do. So therefore, each ensemble is seen as a different climate or even geography within this whole map itself that way. So I start to think of a large ensemble, even an orchestra, as an instrument in itself. Okay, so then of course more recently as well, things like that. So I think with that I should stop. It's 9:04. I'm really sorry.
No worries, no worries. So I think that there's still a lot of content that Dr. Ho would like to cover as well. So maybe what we're going to do is we're actually going to switch this into a conversational approach for this section over here. I believe that Dr. Ho actually prepared a couple more examples as well, but maybe you can interject that together with the conversation. So I'd like to just catch up a little bit. So this could be, taken as the second Q&A portion. So if you do have any questions, feel free to just drop it into the chat. if for anyone who joined in midway, you can just put in your questions in the YouTube or the Facebook chat box, and we will pick out the questions from there. Now there are a lot of questions, no, really popular no chat going on. So I'm going to try to summarize a little bit for some of the questions over here. I think number one, there are a couple of questions that relate to asking Dr. Ho about the concept of the performance interpretation of the work, where there are some questions about, is the note duration and note spacing up to the performance interpretation of the work. Then there's also about the tonal scales for the music as well. So in West and news in a more Western side of things, we do have things like the major and the minor scale, but there's also different type of musical scales in the different periods of Chinese music as well. So I think there were a couple of questions about that in terms of the interpretation of the work and the history and the background of the tonal scales used in the music as well.
What was the first question again? Sorry.
So the first one is about there were a couple of questions all touching on the performance interpretation. So how much of it is interpreted by the performer?
I feel that these are two very different questions, and these are two very big questions. You see, as I start to see music from this other way around, one has to really start to look at these terms. What is interpretation? What is a scale? Really from the other way around. I would suggest that a scale is not a preconceived object. So we don't have a scale, then we make the instrument to fit the scale. I think we have the instrument, like let's say you have the flute, and you start putting holes in. Maybe I'm just imagining, yeah? You can design an instrument that has certain hole functions or string length or whatever. And then you like the tension of it, the feel of it, and then you get the scale. Then whatever composite result that you get out of that is the scale. So in that way, I would think maybe it's closer to like an Indonesian gamelan set. Like they don't have you can talk about slender tuning and all that kind of pelog tuning, but it's not a fixed set. Every gong set will have its particular tuning, so to speak, more or less. Yeah, I mean there's this more slender, this more pelog, but then one set will not match the other set for sure. Yeah. So how do they then tune each gong? I think they tune by the material of the gong, and they feel that, oh, this pitch makes the instrument sound good. In fact, last year when I was in China helping a friend choose guqin, we were talking to the one of the qin masters. He also said, yeah, just tune the instrument so that it sounds good. We asked him, do you tune the instrument so that the A is 440, like concert A? He said, no, every instrument will have a natural resonance that it will sound best in that way. So tune it to that pitch. So therefore, I think that it's that whole very intimate relationship to sound and the sound production, rather than having a preconceived concept of what scale is, and then you superimpose on that instrument. So this is really the other way around looking at it. So similarly with interpretation as well. Interpretation kind of suggests that you already got the text, then you ask yourself, how am I going to read this text, interpret this text, right? I think that that's not the idea at all. The idea is that make that text your own, so that as you must read it as if you are really speaking from your heart. So add any words in, add any pauses, take longer time on certain passages, speak louder at certain words as required for that occasion. Yeah. So I think that's why over time you've noticed that my music really free out this time domain of music. If I were to now put on my Western composer hats, I would say that I kind of leave the time domain decision to the performer, simply because I feel that music can only come out or be created in time, in a live kind of time, live performance time. Yeah. When I write my music, very often composition can be taking a dictation. Yeah, in the Western kind of sense. Like I imagine in my head, in my inner hearing, I hear a nice tune, I hum it, I go piano play it, harmonize, and I write it down, right? So I'm like taking a dictation of what I've imagined in sound, right? So then when I give you that score that is very in great detail, like notated, you are to then play it back as closely to how I've imagined it as possible, right? So I think that I'm kind of already moved away from that that kind of game, right? To me, it's almost like I'm trying to create a space, an instrument, like even with the orchestra, I'm making the orchestra an instrument so that the conductor himself is playing this instrument called the orchestra. Yeah. So then he interacts with the sound that the musicians give back to him. And then what can come out of that? So I'm moving away from an organizer of sounds to an organizer of performance, a designer of sound, a designer of performance. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting, way of viewing things. Just a reminder, we do know that we've kind of overshot that 9 p.m. mark, but because there are still a number of questions that we were going to address, and we mentioned that even if you do have to leave, the show is going to be recorded and it's going to be back up in the same place again. So we'll continue to try and answer as much of the questions as Dr. Ho's time would allow, and you can pop on by anytime later on and just review the remainder of the lecture itself. So I just want to pop in a little bit of a question of mine for you, Dr. Ho. So as you were showing the form of notation earlier on, I don't believe is it that it's common for anyone to sight read and play the piece. It seems a little bit complicated to sight read and play.
With time you can, just like with any notation. I
Okay.
do that sometimes. In fact, there is a or you can read it like a score. That's why I think it's laid out like this, like a text. I mean, there's a famous chapter in The Dream of the Red Chamber, Hong Long Meng, that novel, right? That Qing Dynasty novel. A chapter where Ling Dai was reading this Qin score in her room. Jiao Baoyu came in and then peeped from behind her, wondering what she was reading, and he would assume that she's reading a book, right? But when he looked at the text, he could not figure out what it says. So he started teasing her, saying that, "Oh, 林黛玉进来就是like very cultured now, yeah, so spiritually developed. You can start to read 天书. It's like." We always say 天书 is kind of like the sky book, right? Like it's normal people will not be able to understand, right? So he was teasing her, and then that she in turn teased him back for not even knowing that this is a Guqin score. So what was she doing reading it like that? I think that as a Qin player, one can actually read and visualize and hear how it sounds like. Yeah.
I have a question for you, Dr. Ho. Sorry, can I interject?
No worries.
Yeah, just a quick one, because you talked very early on in the beginning. You talked about how this is part of the Chinese heritage. So when you are transforming the relationship of my body with the instrument to a Western contemporary kind of music composition, how do you reckon that we are transferring or transmitting the Chinese kind of a cultural values or culture within that relationship with the new composition? Do you think that is important?
I think that I'm really not approaching it like a scholar. I'm really approaching it like a very irreverent artist.
Doing whatever feels right, and then giving the artist the autonomy to go with the flow in that sense, right?
Yeah, I really like this whole sense of play.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like in a way. I mean, I guess maybe only a Singaporean can do that, because like for example, I mean, I'm ethnically Chinese, right, as listed on my IC, right? But how Chinese am I? I have no idea. I mean, so to make that claim, to really know that it is what is really Chinese heritage, or Chinese culture. I mean, of course, I have a certain affinity to the sounds, to the feeling and things like that, to those poetic suggestions. Yeah, but apart from that, which may be very superficial, I don't know. I'd rather not even go there to address that.
Yeah. So I mean, building on that question and the topic over there, because I think someone was asking or mentioning about the very lived and very embodied aspect of the performer in the performance. I mean, it's very close, very similar to what you answered in the earlier question and answer session about the aspect and the mentality of the performer itself. And I think that there's a very interesting a portion, which I mean, linking to what I'm asking about, sight reading a score. There are certain instruments or certain forms of notation where it's very easy to sight read because every piece of information is already given to you. The duration of the note, exactly which pitch to play, and in certain instruments there's only one option, but on certain string instrument the same note can appear on multiple strings, so you might need to think about how you're going to play about it. So that the act of actually either the instrument or the notation for causes you to sort of have to think about the performance itself. Have to say, all right, how am I going to approach this? How am I feeling about this? I think there's a very interesting aspect of that where two people might actually perform it slightly differently. I think someone in the chat was actually asking about it, the unique nature of the performance, and there are other forms of notation. I believe Gregorian notation actually don't indicate the duration, so you kind of feel your way through, which means if today you feel one way and then tomorrow you perform the same piece, but your mental state is slightly different, you might stretch this note slightly longer or make it slightly shorter, and you might have this moment where I think it's very interesting for musicians itself, where I always felt that performing as a musician or anyone working with sound itself, there's always this act of closing your eyes, and then you're feeling and you're trying to perform it through that portion rather than a very mechanical recreation of what the score, which I think akin to what you're mentioning about it, that the score was actually telling you what actions to make, and then the sound is a result of that. While in certain forms of composition itself, we're very concerned about getting the exact sound, where sometimes we might notate, I want you to start exactly from this note and then reach this note at this point of time. So I think there's very different approaches for composers and compositions, modes of composition as well.
Yeah, also this idea of like not seeing the performer or the composer as really the primary source of the music. It's really entering a space where you have the instrument and you got this series of actions as maybe in this the score in this case that you got to perform. So it's almost like a ritual that you got to perform, and in that performance it becomes an interaction of all these elements. So therefore, in a way, it is not even a case of a very self-directed or self-centered kind of source of, today I feel sad, so I linger on this longer. Yes, that might come into play, but then because of these other elements in the mix, it might condition you in other ways. So the fun part about it is you come into the play. It's almost like it's like a team sport, like with these things. Almost, I guess it's a bit like playing squash, like even you can play squash on your own, right? So with the ball bouncing and things like that. So things like that this space and all that, they will react to you, and you can in your anger you can do a really strong hit, and it can bounce back in a responsive way, and then you have to respond to it. Yeah. So therefore, there is this interactive system that's already built up in the whole design. So I guess that is the part that, as a computer music trained person, I'm really interested in it, because in a way, composition becomes designing an interactive system. Although I'm writing just purely instrumental music in those cases, right? But I'm really thinking of designing an interactive system where the instrument is part of that system itself. Yeah.
So just to hop into the questions that are from the chat. So I believe there's a little bit of a conversation going on over there with Clara Tan asking, just wondering what are some of the main characteristics of Chinese and Western music aesthetics from the cultural perspectives. And then Junie Jung does mention a little bit about for the scholar and the composer itself, how do we make Chinese Western music without patronizing its indigenous context, when we introduce it into the rhetoric and environment of the other, which I think has this interesting point. I mean, it's a big question. I think it's a big question, like you're mentioning, ethically, or we are, we may be of one particular culture, but when you are heavily influenced through your education by another culture itself, are we we patronizing? How do we stay authentic to one culture? Or or like you're mentioning, that because we are in a little bit more diverse kind of region, or where there's always cross-cultural kind of influences, interactions as well. So do you have any comments about those few questions over there?
Well, I think that like this last one, I kind of really touch on that. My own position is that as a creative artist and someone living here at this time, I don't feel that burden of the bag of the heritage, and I don't feel there is a duty to progress it in that direction. As a Kuchin player, I play traditional music. I study Ming Dynasty scores, and I'm very particular about what that really means. And even sometimes certain fingering positions, sequence are just awkward like crazy. They're just so awkward. But I try my best to try and move and understand why that awkwardness is required. Yeah, is he trying to ask me to pause in some ways, to linger in other ways, right? So in a way, I mean, the fun part about this historic document is that once I get to a certain flow with it, right, at a certain time, I feel like it's a very lively dialogue with something that's written like 500 years ago, and there's this joy in discovering, like, oh, could he mean that, right? So that's what I enjoy doing as a Kuchin player. But you notice that I have not to date written anything for the Kuchin using my way of composing for Western instruments, because I kind of like feel like that I kind of keep it pure, and then this is like really Western.
Yeah, so that's a very interesting approach. I'm just gonna leave the chat going. If you have any last questions that you want to just drop in, or if you think that I missed something, so apologies if I missed a question, feel free to just pop the question in once more. Yun Wun Wong mentions but how would you account for the tonal differences in the old, middle, and modern Chinese? In that case, would the current performance practice change to reflect the changes in modern Chinese?
Well, I think it's the same with the performance practice kind of happening in Western music as well, right? I mean, there's this movement to try and recreate how Baroque music sounds like, even classical music sound like, because the Mozart piano is different from the modern piano. If you play on the Mozart piano, how would it be? What is the touch like, right? You see, so I think that we can only guess. And I find that also very interestingly in those movements, they also approach it from the physicality of playing and the interaction with the instruments of that period. So for me, if you learn a certain piece from a teacher of a certain lineage, they will play to you the way that the teacher had taught them, and you try to learn it the way that they had taught you. Then, of course, they always come with this attending score as a reference. Sometimes what they play is not what is notated, even though as part of their lineage, they use this score and they play, and the teacher is part of this lineage, they teach it like that. So you know that it has already morphed over the centuries. So I guess the fun part is trying to negotiate these two. Yeah. So that's why when I teach, I always tell my students it's okay to learn many different versions, because it's very confusing sometimes and very irritating once you learn it to play in a certain fashion, and then I say, oh, so now you play this version with this slight change here. It's just like irritating because you spend hours practicing this other way, then you're trying to change, like to walk in a certain way ever so slightly is so difficult. But I feel that trying to be flexible is the key to it, so that you keep this whole practice very much alive without really fixated on it being this or that. And I feel that I feel that that's all we can do, I think, and that's all the fun, whether as a scholar doing performance practice kind of research, or as a creative musician trying to make music, or a composer trying to create music. I think that we have to keep things kind of up in the air and keep things not closed and open, but rather open, so that the play continues that way. I mean, that's what I would say.
Okay. So we do have kind of like a follow-up question over there by Gu Wei. I think the question was referring to the tonal difference in the Chinese language rather than the musical tuning systems. His original question was about, is the pitch bands related? Are the pitch bands related to the tones in the Chinese language?
Oh, the pitch bands are very indicated in a very detailed way, and sometimes it's not indicated, but it's suggested. You just know, because to move from one position to another, inevitably you have to slide across rather than skip across. Sometimes you can skip across, sometimes you really have to slide across. Therefore, you create a bend. So that is really understood that way. Whether it is related to a language, I mean, I'm sure there must be influences of that. Yeah, I mean, Chinese is a tonal language. The dialects have even more tones, right? Like Cantonese, they even have even more tones, and the tones have expression as well. Yeah, and so I think that it all kind of feed into this whole mix with the action as well. Yeah. So first of all, you got to negotiate the action. Yeah. Then you get the sound. Then once you get the sound, you will then have to negotiate with the sound created, right? Then that will then in turn condition your action in certain ways. So again, you now see the interactive at work, interaction at work constantly.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I mean, speaking of that interaction, I think you were mentioning a little bit about, when you do have, a piece where you have more than one person playing as well, and then because the score wouldn't necessarily notate every single thing there, right? Like, for example, the note duration and stuff like that. So there has to be some form of like a chemistry between the players in the ensemble as well. How can you rehearse between the multiple players for that piece as well, since there's that collective nature now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a lot of people, like coming from the Western sense of putting together a performance, a lot of people think how you rehearse something like that. I'll say rather than rehearse a preconceived sonic result, let's say it's like, okay, at this stage, at this point here, you play slower, wait for me, and then I come in here and whatever. That's you have really preconceived idea of like the sequence and the timing of sequence, right? Rather than that, I would say that rehearsal for my kind of pieces, or even for Kuqin pieces especially, is a rehearsal of a dynamic relationship. Like you mentioned the word rapport, that's right. How does one rehearse rapport? So maybe it is really closer to like a maybe free jazz kind of improvisation kind of relationship. That it is like it's as a group of people with these materials that has a certain feel on your instruments, and in the way that you play them will create a certain feel. The other performer understands that, and then you kind of call and respond, interject or whatever in that sense. Kind of like us having a conversation. We did not rehearse this conversation, but
we definitely did
like improv as well, isn't it? Where you already have a set of rules in a way, and implicit understanding of how you you interact and you jump in at any point in time.
Yeah, and the rules is not the rules again. I try to compose. So now as a composer, I try to compose the rules deriving from the characteristics of the instrument itself, rather than me superimposing something over that. I mean, like for example, if now we are 3-way conversation, I can say, okay, Hector, you only got 2 minutes. I mean, you got 1 minute, and then I got 2 minutes. I mean, there's something superimposed to it. I could do that as well as a composer, right? But then on the other hand, I can also say, okay, Hector, you talk about this. And then when you feel that Hector has said enough on this, you jump in. So then you jump in with whatever that I've given you to jump in with that you see appropriate. Then I might then, upon seeing you or hearing you do something, then respond in certain ways as well. So then it is material driven. Yeah, in that sense.
Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Ho. I know that everyone has a lot of other burning questions as well. But we do have a time issue where we've already passed it by 30 minutes. So we're gonna try and wrap it up. But I think I've actually been saving one question for the wrap up. I've actually seen a couple of people actually mention it in the chat. Some people will ask. Sorry.
Is there a way to go back to this chat and answer their questions?
Yes, you can. You can go back to the Facebook page and then just respond to it as and when.
So the last question is, time I can go back.
So just to touch on that, is just that I think there are a couple of people who are really interested in learning the Guqing as well. So there were a couple of questions about, where can I buy a Guqing, or where can I learn the Guqing itself locally. I think I'm assuming that some of them were asking about locally. So maybe that's something that could be answered in the chat, because if it's too long an answer as well.
I think that in my profile, in your advertisement, in your notice, there is my website, and there's an email to the website. You can actually email me, or you can just private message me on Facebook Messenger. I think that I tag to this notice. Yeah, then I can give advice from there too. All right,
sure.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Ho, once again. Thank you so much for your time. All right, so we've come to the end of our presentation, Pedagogies Beyond. So thank you so much for being here tonight. Dr. Chow, do you have any announcement that you'd like to make?
Maybe just one, also something to do with your graduation piece. So we have the LaSalle show that's ongoing right now. These are the 11 students who are graduating. So take a look at their master's thesis. They come from all different disciplines, right? From performing arts to design to film to music, dance, theater. So let's take a look at that. It's at bit.ly.com, LaSalle 2020. And this is one way you can show the diversity of the work within arts education. So do support our work. And thank you again for being here tonight. It has been a really, really wonderful time being with Dr. Ho and sharing that space and understanding Guqing.
Thank you, Dr. Ho. Thank you, Dr. Edmund Chow, for the invitation for me to moderate this panel as well. Thank you to all the audience members for your valuable time attending as well. I think that there was some really interesting conversations. So you are equally as significant in keeping the conversation and discussion going on as well. All right. So I think if anyone, if there's no other last words, we'll just call it a night over here. Or I think some of you on the other side of the world, it's a good morning as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.